So with our handsome Mr. W, ready, Winston? I know at times, just like a lot of other dogs and pups, is sometimes novelty can be really overwhelming. So I know he was kind of struggling at certain points, sometimes in a classroom setting where he would see a distraction be another classmate, typically another dog, and then sometimes would have a little bit of a harder time. He is comfortable around certain dogs, which is great. So, but remember, sociability, the spectrum will change depending on the age group, the breed, and a lot of different other factors. So, what our puppies might tolerate when they were itty bitty, so under 5 months, will not be the same that they can tolerate when they're 6 months and above, or when they're going from, like, let's say, a young teenager to maybe an adult dog and then into seniorhood. So same thing with us. Like what we liked when we were 5 is maybe probably not the same thing you liked when you were 15 or when you turned 25 and therefore, and so on. So if you're finding that, oh, well, he was always so good at this when he was little, a lot of it too is as maturity hits, so does their comfort range for certain setups. So like we mentioned with us, our spectrum will also change. Remember that the way we behave around a family member is very different than the way we behave, let's say, around a brand new person, a stranger, or maybe a colleague. So the way I interact with my husband would not be the same way I would interact with like the gas guy. So no offense to him, he's probably very nice as well. But this is where if our socials do not change depending on the social situation, then that could be very, tricky for the rest of the world, but also for us. So with dogs, normal spectrum of sociable sort of situations would be where most dogs are people and dogs selective. So they have certain friends they enjoy, certain that they're like meh, and then others are like no thanks. But dogs that are on the far spectrum of I love everything and everyone, no matter what, and then the ones that are like, this is all awful, I'm terrified, and therefore showing aggression, are the other sort of ends of the spectrum. So just like with us when it comes to our social norms, sometimes we expect our pups and our dogs to be completely okay with strangers, completely okay with small humans, completely okay with random animals or objects or novel dogs. This concept of our dogs being okay with everything is a very unrealistic goal or expectation. This doesn't mean that our dogs can't be set up for success within their comfort range and that they can't be, again, another safe member of society. But remember that sometimes expecting our dog to be okay with all the different setups is just not realistic and it's not really sort of beneficial for them. So right here, Winston, come. Nice. He's like, hold up, there's a stinky smell. Good job, sir. So I just always want to make sure that when you guys are practicing, you've got certain goals, is make sure they're attainable and that they would be beneficial from your dog's perspective too. So there is this concept of having dogs that should be okay with every single person or small child touching them. Would you be comfortable with everybody under the sun being able to come and touch you? So probably not. So remember that if you were to put it into your situation, would you feel okay with it? So this is where, like with one of my boys, he would love to meet everybody. So we were working on for him not always getting to get the thing you wanted, which is always that intimacy with something. My other boy, Bill, even though he's done a wonderful job and I use him for a lot of different situations, he does not want random people or other small children coming and touching him. So same thing with me. I would not want some random stranger coming and touching me either. So this concept of making sure your dog is good with everybody, I'd say safe in a situation where from afar or they have their own buffer. So like what I mean by that is like Bill, for example, doesn't always want random people to come touch him. So when we're out on a walk and someone's like, oh my gosh, your dog is so cute, can I come say hi? Or maybe they don't even start to ask and they just come into my bubble. I would then typically step in front of my dog or do a find it and get him distracted and then talk to the person and say, you know what, he's not interested, but thank you so much. He's actually really shy with new people. So remember, your dog, just like your children and just like you, are not out there for other people's entertainment or for their feelings. So I know that sounds kind of mean, and I'm typically a very good people pleaser. So for me to say, you know what, no, you can't, was a big deal for me too. So because if I can't keep my dog safe and then they, for example, keep getting berated by people that are not super respectful of the dog's comfort range, that's a situation where your dog is probably going to be the one blamed for behavior that would have been preventable. So just like with us, if I had a small human out and about with me, so like let's say my daughter, and some random person came up and started stroking her hair, I probably would go into mommy bear mode and wouldn't be the nicest person for a moment. So this doesn't mean I'm going to hurt them, but I would definitely have a few choice words and say, hey, don't touch, and then probably get a little bit more, get away from that situation. So when it comes to your dog, being sort of like their bodyguard or their safety net for when the world becomes a little too challenging is really important. So just because you have a super cute puppy or even an adult dog that is adorable, which again, they're also stinking cute, we want to make sure our dogs are set up for their best success, which at times means people can't come say hi or other dogs can't come say hi. Because if, let's say, Mr. W, let's say he was okay in the beginning or seemed somewhat comfortable with random people coming to visit, as his social, change happened as he went from puppy to teenager to adult, you're going to find that his comfort ranges will also sort of change. So getting your babe to feel safe is really crucial because it avoids the reactivity or the over-arousal or different behavioral trouble that we might have. So some of my favorites, ready, is let's say, for example, there could be someone approaching you and they seem to be heading right at you. And let's say they're coming this way. I like to go right into a U-turn, change the direction, and then feed my dog for when he does that change. So I'm feeding for, again, moving away from something. Remember, though, if all of these skills you tend to only do in the oh no moment, that's, again, not preemptively practicing. And then now your babe might start to think every time we do one of these skills, here comes that bad or spooky thing. So I like to go ahead and practice. So we're moving, we're practicing in our yard. We could be doing our loose leash walking. And then, oh no, there's something up ahead. We do a U-turn and I feed for that change in direction and we move away from that thing. The other option too is to, for example, let's say we're walking, there's something approaching and my dog might have a harder time. I like to plop a little find it, my dog's behind me, and now I could be my buffer saying, no thanks, we're not interested, but thank you so much, and create that little bit of a zone between me and that thing approaching my dog. Nice job, sir. The other great option is, I know he loves doing his find its where you toss a few snacks. That could also be a great way to get your pup busy doing something else while then you handle the approaching person or child or both. Nice. So, and again, we're not trying to be mean about it, but we want to make sure that our dogs don't get blamed for something that they cannot handle or do not feel safe rocking. So there's no harm in saying no thanks. We're all set. We're in training. We're, sensitive, whatever it might be. Nice. Good job, sir. So again, I'm just feeding for all these lovely loose leash walking moments. So right here, yes. Good job. So the other option too is we have those U-turns. We have, for example, find its. We have also some fronts could be another great option. So let's say you were walking and you want your babe to turn and head back towards you. You could, for example, be walking ahead. Here comes a distraction. You could go into a front and bring them into the front of your body. Keep your babe a little bit busy chatting with, let's say, you and working a few skills, and then another thing could pass on by. So fronts, again, I find the easiest way to start them is with the puppy already in front of you, and you go front, and you bring them into your space. I'm going to also do this from the side so you can see them a little bit better. So let's say, for example, I'm going to have a couple crumbs on me, so a couple little tidbits. We're going to go right into getting Mr. W's nose engaged. I'm going to go front and feed him for as he moves into the front of my body. So again, I sometimes do several little reps, yes, and I'm feeding him for moving into my space. Good job, sir. I might just send him away with a little find it. If you can see it, he's like, oh, there it is. And then you can work this while also walking. So let's say we're walking and let's say there's going to be a distraction. I could go again, front. Nice. And lure him into the front of my body. I might even jackpot. So a jackpot, again, is where you're feeding several snacks one after the other. So you're creating more value in that one moment by creating extra goodies given for that skill or that behavior or whatever it might be, right? So we might be, again, walking. And let's say we're practicing and we want to change the direction. We could go into a turn and then feed for that. Oh, he says, I dropped it. You got it okay? Good job. Nice. This is all these crumbs. They're delicious, even if they're on the floor. Ready? So we could go with me or let's go. And then we could again turn. Yes. Smart boy. So Mr. W is doing a very nice job. Brilliant man. Ready? Find it. But remember, if you're getting a lot of, let's say, lunging, barking, whining, grumbles, growling, then we're already way past his comfort range. So we really do not want to work him where his only option is to fail. So remember that, since I mentioned earlier, dogs and puppies are amoral, they're going to do whatever makes them feel safe as a dog. So for a lot of dogs, barking and whining and snapping and growling is a way to communicate how they're feeling. So if we ignore the warnings, you may end up with bigger and bigger responses. Or if you tend to scold warnings, like your dog growling at the UPS man and you say, knock it off, that's enough, you might by accident create what's called a zero dog. So I know I've discussed this a little bit with a few other friends in the past with some of the dogs in the doggy day school. He's like, I did not see any of those. Ready? We'll do them. They're bigger. Find it. Right, there you go. So if, for example, we are scolding your babe for giving a warning, remember that behavior is not good or bad. It's not right or wrong. It's a feeling, or there's a response to that thing to try to create another response from the environment. So if your dog growls, it's normally, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I need more space. So ready? Winston. He's like, hold up, this wall smells amazing. Ready? Oh, is there a snack stuck in the crack? Ready, Winston, come? Good job. So if I were to scold a growl, for example, that's like me saying, I don't like the noise of the fire alarm as a warning saying there could be a fire. I'm going to take the batteries out. And the problem with taking out the batteries is then when there really is a fire, you have no warning and the big thing happens. So the benefit of a dog that can communicate at the whisper level, it means your dog never has to shout to get you to understand how they're feeling. So dogs that have been scolded or have used adversive tools, so things that hurt, feel uncomfortable, cause lack of oxygen, cause pinching and sort of doesn't feel nice, your dog won't realize that you're mad at to what they're doing for a behavior response to a stimulus. They're going to think that either that stimulus, the environment, or you, or all of them now also created pain paired with that thing. You could also create learned helplessness, which is where your dog, no matter what they've been saying, is ignored and or corrected. And they just learn that no matter what they do, nothing's going to change and they might as well just give up. So we don't want a dog that is a robot or a dog that has no ability to be emotional. Because just like with us as people, if we suppress behavior, we have behavioral trouble later because it comes out really big. So if we were to scold a growl and we get rid of a growl, which is making no contact, and now we scold also a snap or a bite with no contact, you are now getting rid of the two warnings that would have equaled no connection with that thing. And now since the puppy or the dog was not allowed to do those as I need space, I'm overwhelmed, I'm scared, the dog might go from no warnings right into a bite. Winston, come. Good job. So if we're scolding normal dog responses to fear, remember that fear is involuntary. Your dog cannot decide to become a jerk when they're scared. They are simply scared. So you also cannot reinforce fear. So if your dog is scared and you're trying to comfort them, you're actually trying to make them feel better. That's nice. That's good. If your dog was really overwhelmed and agitated and you just kind of let them deal with it, it's more than likely going to be them failing over and over or getting bigger with those responses. So remember, if we're struggling with what we had considered like reactivity, which is where your dog, due to some stimulus, becomes overwhelmed and can't function, and typically it sounds pretty loud or disjointed or can look like aggression as well, those would be moments where we want to make sure we're helping the dog, especially if they're not doing so well. Nice job. So maybe what we'll do, poor Zeus is like, I would also like to do some more practice again. I can hear him yodeling. Ready? Find it. I know to drop one right here. So let's say Mr. W is doing a stellar job with certain things and you're trying to generalize these skills. I know I mentioned a little earlier with Mr. Z too, because he's going through some big boy feelings with adolescence, is you may find sniff spot, an open space, your backyard, even in your home to be a great place to start these foundation behaviors and go from there. Not saying we have to, but you guys may even find that the reactive dog class may be a great option for him. So because for a lot of small dogs too, a lot of their behavior gets ignored because they don't look as menacing as like a Rottie or as a shepherd or whatever. So remember, behavior is still behavior and still communication, no matter if it's a Chihuahua to a Cane Corso. So, but I would still not ignore a small dog, just like I wouldn't ignore a big dog. So there's going to be moments where just because they're little and we can pick them up doesn't mean we actually made them feel better or help them through a situation. We may have just kind of overwhelmed them, and now we're just physically maneuvering them, and that doesn't help them change a perspective either. So ready, Winston, come. Good job. So again, if I wouldn't try to pick up a Roddy, I maybe wouldn't try to pick him up for every situation too, in the sense where he has no agency and he wanted or didn't want to be lifted off the floor. So for some small dogs, they almost don't have many choices as well. And then that can create more anxiety with handling or being manipulated or moved around. So just make sure that if you're struggling with any other tidbits for Mr. W, check in with me, because I want to make sure that what he's having a hard time with, we can help him feel safer or more resilient or more comfortable with those dynamics. But Mr. W did a very good job. So we'll end it with a little find it and we'll give him a little break. But super job for Mr. Handsome.